Success in farming is all about precision and efficiency, ensuring every seed, every drop of water, every nutrient and treatment counts. Terraple Ag is helping farmers all over Iowa and the Midwest do just that. With precision ag drone technology and support from Terraplex, you'll boost your productivity and make timely and informed decisions, all while reducing your costs and increasing your profit. It's time to revolutionize your farming. Harvest the benefits with Terraplex Ag. Visit TerraplexAg.com.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome in. It is April 30th. It is another episode of Making Memz. And I am Adam Pedersen, and I'm here with a man you all know, Jordan Bohannon. And if you are watching this, a lot of you probably just turned your head and said, holy crap, is that Gary Dolphin? Because we have the legend himself, the voice of the Iowa Hawkeyes, Gary Dolphin, joining us. J-Bo, today is a day where I'm very thankful that you became a friend of mine. Gary is someone I've wanted to talk to for decades. And we're very happy to have you, Gary. How are you doing this morning?
Good, Adam. It's appropriate to use crap and dolphin in the same sentence. So that's a good start, because we deal a lot of that out weekly from Labor Day to hopefully the end of April. But no, great to be with you, Jordan. Not only have I admired Jordan's game for a lot of years, but he's become a good friend, and good to be on with you guys this morning.
Yeah, it is. Last week, we're going to talk about Ed at some point. Obviously, you have a very special relationship, and big news last week about Ed. But when J-Bo's like, "Oh yeah, like our family, we know Gary and Ed and all them," I was like, "You have to get him on the podcast. We got to talk to him."
What took you so long, Jordan?
Well, here's the deal. I know you and I have an interesting relationship. We have a lot of probably stories we can't share. We have a lot of history with each other. We have a lot of plane rides and a lot of stories we did share with each other. And I told Adam, I said, almost every single plane ride, I don't know if you noticed this, Dolph, going through it when I was at Iowa, every single plane ride we were flying somewhere, I try to make it a goal of mine, Dolph, to sit right next to you and Bobby. I don't know if you realize that, but I try to every single plane ride. So I wanted to hear you and Bobby share all these crazy stories. I wanted to listen in, because the funny thing is, Bobby, a lot of people don't know this, but Bobby and my dad are best friends. They've known each other for a really long time. So it was almost a small world, full circle moment when I was able to come to Iowa and build such a great relationship with you, Dolph.
Well, that's why you sat behind us all those years. That's why you came back for a 6th and 7th year. I kind of pick up a little material, huh? I didn't realize that, but I appreciate it. It's very humbling, Jordan, of you. We've had a lot of great, Adam, full truth. We've had a lot of great conversations down through the years, not only at shoot around and in practices and on the road and in the hotels, but certainly around Iowa City. And Bobby and I think Gordy Bohannon were roommates, or if they weren't, for a while anyway, they became very good friends.
Really?
I know Bobby Stoops and Bobby Hansen have an interesting relationship too. Former roommates when they're, I think, freshmen or sophomores. That'll all be in my book, guys, including a couple of Jordan Bohannon stories.
Oh yeah.
I got my grandson poking his nose in here. He's getting ready for school. You ready for school? Oh, he brought me the paper. He always brings me the paper. Okay, you go upstairs. I'll be up shortly. Okay, thank you, paper boy.
In the blink of an eye, you'll be going to that young man's graduation, Gary.
Oh man, I know it. That's why this time of the year for me is special, because not only do you get to recharge the batteries, as you guys know, other than being a farmer, then it's 365, 24/7. But it's a fun time. We got 3 grandkids, 12, 10, and he's just turning 5. And they're the vacation that I just love and enjoy every off season. But I watched back to Jordan, Adam. I watched him play in high school, of course, at Linmar.
Yeah.
And living up here around Dubuque, it's a great league, the Mississippi Valley Conference. And J-Bo starred in that league, as many players did, the Murray twins, and now Jack McCaffrey. But before that, it was Connor and Patrick and so many other great players down through the years. So I felt like I've watched or at least known Jordan for many more years beyond his career at Iowa. But what a joy he was to watch. Not so as much for his flair and personality as his skill set. Till my dying day, the autographing the sneakers and putting them at the free throw line at Iowa State that night that the Hawks defeated the Cyclones a few years back will always be one of my favorite memories. And
yes,
you got to be impressed with courage like that.
Now that was I tell Jordan, I still have friends in the area and church friends and stuff who are hardcore Iowa State fans who do not like Jordan, won't even meet the guy and give.
No, I can't believe that. Come on.
Man, this rivalry runs deep.
Jordan reminds me of who was the guy at Iowa State a couple of years ago who was blowing kisses. Good, terrific player out of Canada. I think he's still in the NBA. Jordan.
George, wasn't it? George Niang?
Yeah, George Niang. I mean, I love George's game. Stud player. But there's nothing wrong with it. Angel Reese, she gets vilified.
Yeah.
Because of the motion she made toward Caitlin Clark. What's it done? Well, it's elevated or helped to elevate women's basketball and now the WNBA to heights that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
Even with the Diana Taurasi's and Paige Beckers will be that when she gets there in a year or so. But nobody has had the flair. I mean, who just retired here this week? I'm drawing a blank.
Candace Parker.
Yep. Little known fact. Candace, maybe J-Bo knows this. Candace's dad, Larry Parker, was a great player, great shooter at Iowa back in the day. I can remember watching him play in the field house.
Wow.
Yeah, I think he grew up in Quincy, if I'm not mistaken. And Iowa thought they had a great shot at Candace Parker, and obviously she was a superstar high school player and decided to go to one of the legendary, the blue blood programs. And I get all that, but we have all these great Iowa connections with great Iowa basketball down through the years. So it's a labor of love for me. I mean, I grew up 60 miles from Iowa City. My folks had season tickets, football tickets, and basketball tickets. And my first view of an Iowa football game in person, I was 10 years old back in the 60s, and Iowa played Notre Dame, and that wasn't fun. I think it was 45-7 later, but just being in Iowa Stadium then was a dream come true for a 10-year-old kid. And then, ironically, my first trip to Iowa City for an Iowa basketball game, live in person, was Don Nelson's senior night.
Wow.
I'm dating myself now. It was 1962 or 3, and Nelly hung 37 on Wisconsin that night. So, I mean, I was hooked after that. I would love to have watched Bohannon play in the Iowa Fieldhouse. There was no place like that old building that sat 13,000 people. And what I always remember was the iron colonnades in the second deck. You could buy a cheaper ticket, but you had to do this all night watching the game if you were sitting right behind the iron colonnade. But you could also smoke in the field house during the game. Ralph Miller, I mean, he didn't do it on the bench, but he'd like to. But the legend, he'd sit there with his legs crossed and light one off the other. But this drifting smoke cloud would hang about halfway up the ceiling at the field house, and it loud. Lute Olson got his building in Carver Hawkeye Arena a few years later, but Lute always lamented the fact that there was no place like the Iowa Fieldhouse as he was getting his program going. And so great memories all. I'll I don't know if I'm going to write a book or not, to be honest with you, because
I think you should.
Half of it would be X-rated, but that's something I'll have to decide here in the near future.
That's what people want to listen to, Dolph, there, right? The X-rated version.
Yeah. Well, what reputation I have left, J-Bo, I'd like to at least save it for the grandkids.
Oh man. Well, Dolph, I know you got to get going before too long. We got to have you on again because there's a million things to talk about. But
you bet.
The news last week, and Ed is someone who he's special to Hawkeye fans everywhere, but I think he might be a little more special to us farmers and people who had to spend a lot of Saturdays listening to you guys. I guess just tell us about your relationship with Ed. Maybe you got some favorite moments. Did you know him before you joined him in the booth? And just, I don't know. I think everyone just wants to know what it's like hanging out with him and your stories with him.
Well, he's special. I mean, and big picture, I've said this before. Jordan's heard me say this at bike club banquets or wherever I give talks. There's 130 Division I football programs. And I think at last count, there's 340 Division I basketball programs. So that roughly 450 total programs in Division I, men's basketball and football. So that's not a lot of, it's not a lot of jobs at the Division I level if you're a play-by-play man. And with that as a backdrop, I tell people I'm not aware of anybody else. There could be somebody out there, but as far as I know, I'm the only Division I play-by-play announcer that has a Super Bowl champion for a football analyst and an NBA champion for a basketball analyst. And they were both outstanding athletes and tremendous players at Iowa. Bobby played in the Final Four in 1980. Podolak, for 1 week, had the NCAA single-game rushing record. That's a little-known fact. He ran for 200 and I think it was 86 yards against Northwestern. Jeez. And then a week later, a Michigan running back broke it. And here's a trivia question for you, Jordan. I know you're a big football fan. I know Adam is too. Podolak, when he ran for the 285 against Northwestern that Saturday in 1968, he broke a record that had stood for, I believe, 35, maybe 45 years. Whose record did he break? You guys care to take a guess?
Oh, I got a good feeling.
Well, give me a name.
I think it's got to be Niall Kinnick, right?
That's a great answer, but the wrong name. Well, Jordan wouldn't. I mean, you're back in the 30s and 40s, but it was the Galloping.
Dolph, we're not old like you. Come on now, give us a question.
I know. I love history. I'm a big history fan. It was the Galloping Ghost, Red Grange, maybe one of the top 5 running backs of all time. So that's how special Eddie is, and it's rare when a guy as good as Podolak was, won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs, played 10 years. It's rare when a guy can transition from the field to the broadcast booth. I've worked with so many great ones over the years, but I've never worked, fellows, with anybody who, when the play-by-play job is to tell you what happened. The analyst tells you how it happened or why it happened. And there is nobody that I've ever come across that can explain it as simple or as intricately as Podolak can. If you're a Phi Beta Kappa or a 7th grader, you can understand what just happened on the field. And radio, Adam, you mentioned it. Iowa's an ag state; it's a farm state, so we got a lot of radio listeners. Not only the farm industry, but people driving up and down 2 great interstates throughout this state on a Saturday, washing their car in the driveway, heading to the mall or to the shopping center. Yeah. And they've got Hawkeye radio. And I just got the numbers last week. We had about 500,000 people. We're channel surfers. It's not just the satellite dish, but we're channel surfers. But every 15 minutes, we've got about 300,000 people that tune in and out. Now, they'll come back. They'll always come back, but they want to see what the Cyclones or the Panthers or the Bulldogs are doing. So they'll flip up and down the channel. But over 500,000 listeners. We have 50 wonderful stations on the Hawkeye Radio Network, but that includes, it doesn't include XM satellite. Who knows how many people around the country. We hear from folks all over America and really around the world, soldiers in Afghanistan. It's a labor of love, but Podolak is the key because he's played the game at a level I will, or us will never know, as has Bobby Hansen. And so it's so, I'm as interesting a fan as you two are listening to their analysis. And here's a little caveat. Podolak has never used binoculars. Now that's incredible to me. In football, we're 8 stories up at Kinnick Stadium. Yeah. I'm never without binoculars for different reasons. My job is to follow the ball. And if it's fumbled, who recovered, who caused the fumble. Podolak's job is unique in that he's a former great player. And I asked him one time early on, and I think this is how chemistry develops, little caveats like this. He says, well, I don't like binoculars because I want to see the defense. I want to see the whole defense. Typical great running back, Hall of Fame running back. So that gives him a perspective from 8 stories up. And his eyesight obviously is still pretty good. But it's 27 years we've been doing this. And now he'll be 77 Labor Day. Yeah. And I think with Ed, the announcement last week, it's more physical. The wear and tear of Jordan knows the travel that the players go through. I mean, it's no big deal on me. It's getting that way, but the travel and the preparation week after week after week for 13 games, it can get to you. You know, if you want to present a product like we do, you know, we're working. I probably put in some. I got asked this the other day in a classroom. Once Saturday's game is over, I detox on Sunday, and then Sunday night I start watching because you can get replays of every opponent all over the sure. Satellite dish. I take a quick look at Northwestern's game the previous day, and then on Monday go to work on numbers and facts and figures. And Podolak gets his notes on Tuesday, and we listen to the weekly press conferences. And then by Wednesday, I'm on my way to Iowa City to do Ferentz radio show. That's kind of my personal press conference because I got all these questions down that I use on Saturday. Not a whole lot's going to change between Wednesday and Saturday. Thursday, I've got my 2 deeps. Got my 2 deeps.
Oh, there
right
we go.
Here. There's 22 names. Well, there's more than 22 over here on this side are all the specialty team members. And that's just Iowa. And behind that is whatever the opponent was. I think it was Tennessee, the Citrus Bowl. And I'm not going to talk much about that.
Yep.
So
we don't need to talk about the Citrus Bowl.
No. But I probably put in 12 to 14 hours of prep time just on the game coming up. Sure. And then you have all the other outside mentions, the plugs, the commercials. It's a labor of love, and it's a lot of work. But if it sounds entertaining, and it sounds meticulous on Gabe, then we've done our work. And there was nobody better than Podolak. And Bobby's the same way. Bobby Hansen's the same way. But the difference maker, the separator with Podolak, though, is his sense of humor. Now, this guy, he's so well traveled. I mean, he lived next door to Jimmy Buffett in Aspen. Michael Douglas was 2 doors down, and who else? There was another famous. Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson had a place 3 doors down. Now that's when Aspen was really getting up and going in the 70s, and of course, Podolak was a superstar. I mean, the guy still has the NFL playoff record for most combined yards in a game. That famous Christmas Day Sunday game with the Miami Dolphins. Now the overtime structure was a little different then, but they went one, maybe 2 overtimes. And the Chiefs were the defending Super Bowl champs and lost that game to Bob Greasy and Miami. But he had 300 and I think it was 350, 360 combined yards. That's running the ball, pass catching, punt, and kickoff returns. So that body took a lot of wear and tear over 10 years. But he's kind of a movie star or a societal star beyond his football abilities. And we all know he was a great running back and talent with the Chiefs.
It's the mustache. Everyone with a mustache is just a little.
Yeah, he had the food down. Of course, he introduced the crossbar helmet because Lyle Alzado, Mean Joe Green, among others, the forearm shiver was still allowed in football at that time.
Yeah,
and Ed's nose is a little bigger than the normal size schnoz. And just to show you how the game has changed, we know the equipment has changed much better these days, but back then the helmet was solid, but not like it is today. Podolak gets his nose broken the first period, and he trots to the sideline, and he rips his helmet off, and the nose is bleeding, and they gauze it up, and they put tape over the top of it, and he said, "Here, fix this crossbar." Alzado hit him so hard it cracked his crossbar. And hurry up, I want to get back in there. I mean, you had a broken nose or a belt in the eyeball, you're probably done for the day today, and rightfully so, but not then. But his sense of humor from all. I remember one day we're in the booth, and as I can't remember the kicker, but Iowa was kicking off, and as the ball is spiraling through the air, Ed's phone rings. He's still got the flip phone, and that loud ring. His hearing is a little bit of an issue these days. This is probably 10 years ago, and all I hear is I'm trying to call the run back on Jerry Jeff, I can't talk right now. I'll call you back. It's Jerry Jeff Walker.
You probably wanted to talk to him too.
I'm thinking the Jerry Jeff Walker who wrote Mr. Bojangles. Can I talk to Jerry Jeff? Outlaw country, but it's just you get those calls. Jerry Jeff wanted a tea time for he and Willie Nelson at the Cherry Hills Country Club in Denver, where they've hosted a half a dozen U.S. Opens. Arnold Palmer's course, and Eddie took that all in stride, and but he developed such a great sense of humor. My favorite among 100 was Iowa was opening the season against Ball State out of Muncie, Indiana, and the Hawks were like a 4-touchdown favorite. And this is, I'll tell you, Jake Rudock was the quarterback. So what is that, 8, 9, 10 years ago?
Yep.
And Hawks are down 2 scores with 5 minutes to go, something like that, 5-6 minutes to go. And they had 1 timeout left. And they had just punted the ball to midfield where Ball State could make them burn the final timeout. The end of the story is Iowa came back, scored 2 touchdowns to win the game. But at the 5-minute mark, they go to a commercial timeout, and Ed's taking the headsets off. And when he does that, he knows he's going to bounce them off the top of the table. He's so upset. And it's a day, 75 degrees, sunny, beautiful opening day in Kinnick Stadium. You guys have been there. You know what I'm talking about. 8,000 people get up and leave the stadium, and they're on their way out to begin their post-game tailgating a little earlier than normal.
Yeah.
Frustrated as we are. So Podolak's got his head down on the counter, didn't say a word, and he's got that Beetle mop, and he's running his hands through his, this isn't going to be good coming out. So I'm trying to put a positive spin on everything, and we come out of the commercial break, and welcome back to Kinnick Stadium, folks. Iowa down 9 points with 5 minutes to go and only 1 timeout. It looks pretty dire, but let's not give up yet. And Ed puts his headset back on. I go, buddy boy, I just saw something you don't see normally. What's that, buddy boy? Well, 8,000 people just exited the stadium to begin their post-game tailgating, a little issue. Obviously, or post-game tailgating, they have issues just like you do with the results of this game so far. And he cuts me off midstream and goes, don't kid yourself, buddy boy. If we weren't getting paid, we'd have been gone a long time ago. That's one of my all-time favorite lines. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, here we go. But Jake threw a touchdown pass, and the Hawks got a pick, I think. Why Ball State was throwing the ball, I don't know. But anyway, they came back to win. So then he's bouncing around. He's all excited. But he's a real joy. Your question about, did I know Ed before we came together on the air? Yes. Back in the 70s, here's a little known fact. My first year covering Iowa football was the 0-11 year. And man. I thought of that at Nebraska when the Hawks were finishing off a 12-0 season in 2015. And boy, we sure came full circle. Yeah. But I was doing the games back then. You could, any station in Iowa could pay a rights fee and come in and do Iowa football. Now they only had like 12 booths total back in the old press box. So, but the Dubuque radio station KDTH was there from the 1950s on. So I assumed the sports directorship there, and that was my introduction to Iowa football, at least as a play-by-play voice back in I think it was 72 or 73. Well, I'll tell you, Dan McCarney was a starting lineman for the Hawkeyes. Bobby Elliott was a defensive back. Craig Clemens, who would knock your block off, was a #1 draft pick coming off. Think about this, coming off an 0-11 year. Craig Clemens was a #1 draft pick of the Chicago Bears, one of the great safeties ever to play the game, but injuries took his career away way too soon. So from there, that was Frank Laudeber. I did 5 years of the Bob Cummings era. And then it all changed in 1978-79 when a West Texas small town boy named Hayden Fry got the job, and
yes, sir.
Look at us now. Look at us since then. It's been incredible, and it's a labor of love for me. Of course, I enjoy doing any kind of play-by-play. High school. In fact, I jumped in and did an Iowa baseball game a couple of weeks back when they had to switch some things around in Iowa City, and I did 5 years of minor league baseball in the old Midwest League.
Oh, nice.
The league that Cedar Rapids and Burlington and Wausau, and so I did 5 years of that, and there's nothing quite like baseball. Baseball, football, you've got 15, 20 seconds between snaps to kind of regroup for the moment. Baseball is so good because it gives you a double chance to be creative and to talk about what's coming up and the pitch that they just threw, and what's Brody Breck going to throw now. But baseball is, it's the great American game, and that was my baptism into play-by-play, and I think it's helped make me the broadcaster that I am today. But Ed, when I was doing the games in the 70s and 80s, Eddie was still playing, of course, and then he came to Iowa. Jim Zabel obviously saw something in him at WHO, and that was 1982 or 83. So he's wrapping up a 41-year career. And I'm just privileged to have sat next to him for 27 of those 41. But I knew him socially first, and then got to know him.
Well, then you knew it was going to be a good time.
Oh, I knew what I was getting into. Trust me, in 1996, 97. And you know what? He was one. I can't remember if he was the first one to call me, but if Jordan won't remember this, but Adam, you might. There was I put it in quotation marks. There was a verbal uproar in this state because Bob Bowlesby had made the decision to go to an exclusive network.
I'm aware.
You had Zabel,
yep,
Ron Gonder, the great Bob Brooks. I can't remember if Frosty Mitchell was doing games.
Yeah. My dad talks about those days.
Oh my! I mean, it was who's this guy from Dubuque who thinks he can come in and put forth a product that these 3 or 4 Hall of Famers have put forth. Now, the advantage, I think a huge advantage, is that I not only knew all of those Hall of Famers, and I had been listening to them for many years. I knew their mannerisms, but I had become good friends with all of them because Bob Brooks and Ron Gonder is an example. I'd see them in Cedar Rapids when I was covering high school football and basketball, or Midwest League baseball. Bob Brooks was on the board of the Cedar Rapids Colonels for many, many years. Zabel I knew on road trips from the 70s. He'd been doing games since Jesus Christ was a teenager. And so Z was always holding court. He's always telling jokes and great sense of humor. So that was an advantage I had. And ultimately, in time, Bob Brooks, Ron Gonder, they were always on my side for the job. They understood the economics of the business. And by that, I mean Learfield, which still has the rights to Iowa here 27 years later. Learfield offered the university at the time a little over $1 million. Sorry, guys, my stopwatch is going off here. A little over $1 million for rights fees. And at the time, Iowa was collecting around $300,000 a year from all those radio stations. And Bob Bowlesby kept looking at the disparity between, I got 1.2 over here in the pocket. I'm netting 350 now. But Bob, very respectful. Bump Elliott always told Bob Bowlesby, I'm never going to be the one to go tell Bob Brooks or Ron Gonder or Jim Zabel, you can't do Iowa football anymore. And hey, we all get it because it's Iowa, right? Well, Bowlesby kept looking at those numbers and the skyrocketing costs of supporting Jordan 24 Sports at the time you were there, and finally said, you know what? These great announcers aren't ever going to retire. They love it so much because it's Iowa football and basketball. And so Bob made the difficult decision to go to Learfield. And at that time, Learfield, to its credit, had nothing to do with me. I was reading the Gazette and the Cedar Rapids Gazette and the Des Moines Register every day, anticipating who would be the next voice of the Hawkeyes, because it's a big deal. And I was doing Northwestern. I was in Chicago doing Northwestern at the time. Play-by-play. I was working for the Bears on Sunday with their TV production. So I was in a very good situation. Sean Morris was doing the color with me on Northwestern basketball games at that time, maybe my second all-time favorite analyst. And I get a call one day from a committee member at Iowa, who you both know the name, and he said, "Hey, we're looking for a new play-by-play voice, and we're curious why you haven't applied." And I said, "Well, I didn't know you were looking for a new play-by-play voice. I assume you're going to give it to one of the big three." And this gentleman said, "No, we can't. We don't feel we can give it to one over number two over number three. So we're going to break and bring in a brand new voice." And that's really how the process got started.
Yep.
And
we're all thankful for it.
Well, my first question was, is Ed Podolak going to remain as, and oh, absolutely, Ed Podolak's going to remain as the analyst. So it worked out great. And here we are today. So that's a long answer to, did I know Ed Podolak?
Yeah.
And we've been brothers for a long time, and he'll still be involved in the broadcast on, I assume, pregame coverage. Okay.
Yeah. You got to get going here to preschool, I take it.
We don't have to go yet, do we?
He's like, let's go. No. What are we doing?
His dad is a cop, and so he's got a difficult decision. Whether he's going to be a police officer or the next voice of the Hawkeyes. He's got to wait a few years for that, but he looks pretty good with a headset on.
Yeah. I've got more questions. Jordan might
I got a few minutes. Go ahead, fire away.
Jordan, you got more or not?
No, I was just saying, well, if his dad's the cop, so you're hiding most days from him, aren't you?
I know his badge number. If I ever get pulled over for
hey, do you know so-and-so?
I try to abide by the law. I've only been suspended twice now, so give me a break here.
A core memory I have in my life is the entire 2009 football season, Gary. What an insane season of roller coasters. You got Marvin McNutt's last-second touchdown catch from Stanzi. You had the crazy comeback against Indiana when Iowa was ranked 4th in the country. And you had, there was just so many crazy – the double block field goal was that – I was at that game. And it was just – I was thinking of, like, what are some of your favorite calls? I know I have some of mine, but what was that call going through all those nail biters and crazy up and down games in that season? What's a season like that do for a man's health like you?
It was an incredible year. I mean, everybody wants to talk about the Capital One Bowl, and I learned a valuable lesson on the Tate to Holloway, because I didn't know who had caught the pass, because he was swarmed under by tacklers, Warren Holloway, immediately. And Podolak and I were coming out of our skin over the fact that the Hawks hadn't called a timeout. They had 2 timeouts left, and the clock's winding down, and they're down 2 points. All they need is a field goal.
Yep.
But Drew Tate and Kenny O'Keefe had everything well in hand. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they had 2 plays called. And Nick Saban, the coach at LSU, ran in a pure freshman at safety who wasn't quite sure what to do or where he was to be. And Tate popped it. Clinton Solomon took double coverage to the strong side, and Drew looked his way and then came right back and pop flied it to Warren right down the seam. And the forgotten man. I don't believe what I just saw, and I still don't. And what gets lost in that is Eddie Hinkle, who was an outstanding receiver for his entire career at Iowa, was the outside, weak side receiver. And if you look at that tape, he gets a shoulder, just a chip block on the corner at about the 8-yard line. Otherwise, Warren, who wasn't the fastest man in cleats, might very well have been tackled inside the 5, and the game would have been over. And so there's so many components to a play in football when you got 11 guys out there. But to the 2009 season, you go on upstairs now, bud. I'll be up in a minute, okay? Then we'll talk. He's got cops on upstairs. We tape all the cops episodes so he can watch. One. I'll be up.
That's great.
Anyway, the 2009 season. There's so many ups and downs in that season. Ricky Stanzi tearing the ligaments in his foot.
Yep.
The next week after the Saturday night game at Michigan State, which to me was a real turning point in that season. If you remember, Colin Sandeman got laid out on an illegal hit.
Out cold.
Out cold and just writhing, gyrating on his back. And the Michigan State safety steps over the top of him and is standing over him, looking down at him. And that almost drew an all-out brawl, fist fight at that point. And so Michigan State's up, I think it was 5. Iowa has no timeouts. They get a 15-yarder for the cheap shot. And Ricky Stanzi, his memory serves me, had it at about the Iowa 40.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew all about Ricky Stanzi then, but I knew this. He's got stones, unlike most quarterbacks. And when you do what you just did to an Iowa teammate of his, Ricky Stanzi is going to make you pay for it in more ways than one. And Ricky was a great quarterback. He's one of my all-time favorites. But it takes 2 to tango, and he had Marvin McNutt on the outside.
Yes, sir.
I don't know there's been a greater receiver in the history of Iowa football than Marvin McNutt.
Yeah.
Had the biggest hands, the longest nails of any wide receiver I've ever seen at Iowa. I mean, his fingers were as thick as a ball bat. And so Stanzi dinks and dunks right down the field, and the Hawks have 4th and goal at the 7. No timeouts. They got to go to the end zone. I think there was 3 or 4 seconds remaining. And as they told me later, Marvin has talked about this story. In the huddle, Marvin says, "Throw me the ball." And Stanzi looked at him and said, "Marvin, you see that strong safety? He's going to be right at the goal line when you catch it. He's going to knock you. Throw me the ball."
Yep.
So everybody knew McNutt was going to get double coverage. And Stanzi said, "Okay." He takes that 3-step drop and he missiles it. Marvin catches it at he just snares it. The thing was going 100 miles an hour. Snares it right at the 2, and that strong safety is right there. And that strong safety throws a shoulder into Marvin and goes backwards. And McNutt, he was what?
He was not going to be denied.
No, and he's 6'1", somewhere in that neighborhood, and he lunges across the goal line. Iowa wins the game. They kicked the extra point and won it, I think, by 2. And that was the most satisfying win maybe in the 27 years I've been doing Iowa football.
Yeah.
Because, D'Antonio had a great team at Michigan State.
Yep.
And then you talk about punching the balloon with a nail the next week. Stanzi rolling through the end zone.
Brutal.
Against a really good Northwestern defense, trying to buy time, and gets tackled by a tremendous tackle, a defensive tackle for the Wildcats. His name escapes me, but he played in the NFL for a number of years. Goes down and gets up, and he can hardly get out. And I think, you got to be kidding me. Iowa's ranked 3rd in the country. They're 9-0, and he's done for the rest of the year.
Yep.
But all's well, it ends well. They end up losing. Northwestern upset them that day. They lost one more game, went 11-2, and of course, the vaunted Georgia Tech triple option offense that was averaging 300
game.
Yeah, Adrian Claiborne, AJ Eads got a big pick.
Yep.
That's the Brandon Wager game.
Yep.
The one and done for Brandon, the freshman who had lightning speed and was named the MVP of the offense. But the most amazing thing, and again, this is, I could go on all day, maybe another show about Norm Parker's defense.
Yep.
Phil Parker. But he learned from the legendary Norm Parker, who coined the line, boys do what they want to do, men do what they have to do. And Chad Greenway to this day can recite that letter by letter. But Georgia Tech's offense was top 10 ranked in the country. A triple option, which it's kind of a version of the old wing T that is rarely run. And so Norm had 30 days to prepare for this offense that was averaging 330 yards on the ground.
Yep.
Rushing. And 150 yards passing. I mean, it's an unbelievable offense. And they got 135 yards total offense that night in Miami in the Orange Bowl against Iowa's defense. And Adrian Claiborne absolutely terrorized Georgia Tech. Tyler Sash, Brett Greenwood, Pat Angerer. I mean, the names, that defense was special among many defenses that Norm Parker had.
Yeah.
But to your point, Adam, that 2009 season, the ups and downs might be my favorite outside of the 12-0 year, the 12-0 regular season. Of course, the heartbreaking loss to Michigan State at the Big Ten championship.
Brutal.
Give them credit. They drove 90 some yards on 18 plays and got it in the end zone against an outstanding Iowa defense that was really worn down by that stage of the game. So but all great memories. I mean, college football, college basketball, or Jordan intentionally missing the free throw. We'll save that for another episode.
Talking about Jordan here,
Cliff Street.
I got to give my co-host some flowers here. So back to the Michigan State game. There's been 2 times in my Hawkeye fandom, and I've told Jordan this before, where I blacked out, completely lost it. And it was the 7 got 6, Marvin McNutt. I jump up, scream, I go running down the stairs, all the blood rushed to my head, and I literally blacked out, passed out at the bottom of the steps. And then when J-Bo hits the game-winning 3 against Indiana, Big Ten tournament, I jump off my couch and I go, J-Bo! And then the next thing I know, I wake up on my living room floor below my TV, completely blacked out from all the blood.
So you did black out. Man,
yeah, legitimately.
Well, you are a Hawkaholic, as we used to say.
Yeah, so now to be sitting here and having a podcast with a man who got me so fired up that I passed out is pretty cool stuff. How do you contain yourself in a moment like that when J-Bo hits a 3 like that, and the place is just going nuts? Yeah,
I tell you, the one he hit at Wisconsin as a youngster was equally special to me because of the Bohannon family tree has reached into Madison, and a great basketball program. And as Jordan knows, you don't win at the Kohl Center. I mean, that's one of the more difficult venues in America to win, period.
Yep.
And Pemsel gets the offensive rebound and thought about taking the shot for maybe that long, and then saw Fran McCaffrey staring bullet holes through him if he did take the shot. And fortunately found Jordan right there just left of the lane, and he popped that in. And I could do a whole show just on Jordan memories. I mentioned Iowa State, the free throw, the shot at Wisconsin, the shot in the Big Ten tournament. Luke Record had one like that previously to Jordan. All great memories, but I get asked often, what's your favorite football and basketball memory? And it's impossible to pin it down to one. But there's no question basketball game, for a lot of reasons and a lot of great performances, was the Hawks ending Kansas 68-game home winning streak at the Allen Fieldhouse. And it just happened to be Tom Davis. Last year, Tom had been told that he would not be retained as coach for a variety of reasons, and I'm not going to debate those. But there's no finer human being than Tom Davis. Jordan knows that especially. But Dean Oliver, Kent McCausland. I think the Hawks were down. I know it was double digits. Might have been like 16 at half, and McCausland, a la Jordan Bohannon, comes out and nails back-to-back threes. Now they cut it inside 10, and Roy Williams was coaching Kansas, and they had an incredible team, obviously, and they're at home.
Yeah.
And you could just see them go, oh, wait a minute, this is not supposed to be happening. And the crowd was booing and throwing paper cups, and gradually behind Oliver, incredible play at the point, the Hawks came back and got the lead, and then Dean hit a bunch of free throws in success. It's a typical Bohannon moment. Just, put me at the foul line, no big deal. 17,000 screaming enemy in your face, and he nailed it. And the Hawks got out of Lawrence with a big win. So there's many great memories, and I'd love to come back and talk about more of them in future.
Yes, sir. We'll have to have you back on again this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys don't mind, I'll take my leave and go get the little guy to school.
Yes, sir. Well, I will.
I don't want to catch the wrath of who if
hear
he's
you.
Late for
we hear
school.
You. I just want
to. Been great.
No, I want to thank. I think on behalf of farmers and people across the state, I just wanted to thank you. It's radio guys have a special place how they can make a game come to life. And it's almost like while we're listening to you guys through the radio, we can see the field. And it's a very rare talent that you have to really be that good at it and elite like you are. And so I just remember Saturdays in the fall taking Grain to the elevator and hearing a touchdown Iowa. And like you look around at all your farmer buddies in their semis and we're all fist bumping to each other while we're in there dumping grain. And like, I hope you realize the impact you have and how important you are to fan bases, because man, it's something to have someone as entertaining as you and Ed have been over the years, and you and Bobby when we're working and can't watch the game and we get to listen. And so I just wanted to thank you for essentially not sucking and being amazing at what you do and being entertaining for us who can't watch the game sometimes on Saturdays.
Well, that's very kind of you, Adam. I appreciate that. I mean, when you've got young athletes like Bohannon to cover and follow it, it makes my job a lot easier. And of course, anytime you have success, but you're not going to win every game. And I remember one of my original mentors said, here's the deal in Iowa. It's an AM radio state. I'll never forget that. And he said, there are going to be days where you're going to get your butt kicked. So the key is you got to persevere. And that means you better have a sense of humor. You better have a way to keep the audience engaged. And so that's why I love throwing out the Facebook and the Twitter page handles each game day. Let us know where you're listening in from, and who doesn't like to hear their name on the radio, right? I mean, Jordan knows that. So it's kind of a caveat. Of course, when you have guys like Podolak and Bobby Hansen who grew up in this state, who starred in high school and in college in this state, everybody's related. Everybody knows everybody. So it's really a family affair. That is very unique. That doesn't happen in maybe the state of New York or California or Texas, where they love their college athletics as well. But Iowa's different. It's unique. I grew up in this state. I listened to all the great announcers. My mom and dad gave me a red colored spin dial RCA transistor radio when I was 8 years old. And I found it fascinating that you could lay in the top bunk at night and just turn it 1/8 of an inch, and you get Ernie Harwell in Detroit. And then you turn it a little more, you get Jack Buck in St. Louis, and a little bit more, and you get Merle Harmon in Minneapolis, and a little bit more, and you get Jack Brickhouse and Bob Elson, 2 Hall of Famers in Chicago. And that's where I fell in love with baseball, frankly, listening to the radio in the 60s. And I'm thinking, here I am 8 years old. Honest to God, I go, what? How neat would that be? To call a Mickey Mantle home run. That's what I want to do when I grow up. I want to be in radio. And I gave it, I was in TV for 10 years. And, you work all day to get, that much copy. And then you get out on the set and they tell you got 2.5 to 3 minutes. What? I've been working all day. So I love television. Don't get me wrong. But I thought, you know what? I got to get back to radio. So that's my life in about 30 seconds. But no, I appreciate the comments. And Iowa's unique. Iowa's different, but Iowa's without question my favorite in the greatest league in America, in the Big Ten, where you see so many wonderful teams and the great coaches we have in this league. It's unparalleled. And unfortunately, or fortunately, we're headed to maybe 2 conferences when it's all said and done. With this crazy sports world that we live in, and I'm all for NIL. Don't get me wrong. The athletes certainly deserve some pay for play, without question. We got to get some boundary lines around NIL and make it equitable for all the athletes. You got a right guard blocking for the quarterback. You've got a great point guard getting the ball into a Luka Garza. So it's got to be equal pay for equal play. And we'll talk about that some other time. But great to be on with you, J-Bo. Good to see you, bud. Take care, okay?
Love you, Dolph. Appreciate you. Appreciate your friendship.
You bet. See you again, guys.
Thanks, Gary. Have a good one. Sorry I hijacked that. I feel like I didn't let you talk at all.
Hey, I wanted you to because I've known the guy so well and so long, and I wanted you to kind of have that moment. So I'm glad you did.
All right. Now, next time, later this summer, whenever it is, Dolph 2.0, I'll shut up more now that I got some of my things out.
Hey, you're completely fine. I'm a listener. I like to listen. Just listen to the guy. How you could listen to him all day.
Oh my gosh, he's a historian.
Yeah. He knows
just
everything.
one question and away he goes. And I mean, that's just proves that he's meant to do what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
And I wish I could probably share more stories. I mean, we could have had a whole show just talking about me and Dolph's stories and Bobby's stories through the 6 years I played at Iowa. And he's a wealth of knowledge. That's why I wanted to sit around them on the plane all the time, because you just listen to them, run in front of them or behind them. And I'm telling you, like, you could just listen all day to them talk about life, talk about stories. It's pretty incredible.
Yes, sir. Got to talk about some of our sponsors here. I just wanted to save it until Dolph was done so we could just let him cook. Channel Seed Studios is where we are doing this podcast from. They are a very, very busy bunch right now, getting their seed out to their farmers and probably riding along in the tractors and stuff. And also Terraple Ag. Drones are becoming a big part of farming, so you should check out Terraple Ag, and they will help you out with any needs you have with a drone, whether it's aerial footage of your farm, if it's putting on cover crop, if it's putting on foliar feeds, spraying, whatever you need. Terraple Ag has what you need. And also, even though football and basketball are over, you can still bet on baseball and other random things. And you should do that with DRF Sportsbook, Iowa's local sportsbook. They're only in Iowa. So you want to support local, you support DRF. And as always, bet responsibly. Right, Jordan? Don't lose a lot of money like me.
Right, Adam.
I need you to be my accountability partner. I'm taking the summer off. No bets until college football season.
Okay.
Need to recover from the repeated nut kickings I took.
I don't believe you, but we'll see.
Oh, man. So did I hear him say that your old man and Bobby Hansen were roommates? Or really became good friends?
They're really good friends. Yeah. So this is such a small world with everything. So obviously when my dad was at Iowa, that's when Hayden Fry just came in, and my dad was pretty much the first quarterback he recruited. Mm-hmm. And my dad came in, obviously met great people like Dolph and all the great people of Iowa that the personalities behind the programs. And Bobby was on the basketball team at the same time. My dad loved basketball, loved playing basketball, hung out with a lot of the basketball guys, and would play at the field house a lot of times.
Awesome.
And he built a really close relationship with Bobby. They hung out a lot, had a lot of fun together in college, had a lot of stories that they can't tell me, but that was the 80s back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've grown to it's just funny hearing everything my dad went through at Iowa, and then full circle with me. Now Bobby's a play-by-play guy with the Hawks, and built a really special relationship with Bobby and Dolph when I was there. So it was a pretty small world of how everything's kind of shaped up to be with the relationship I built with Dolph. And on top of it all off, my girlfriend Carly's babysitter was Bobby Hansen's daughter. So it's just a crazy small world.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's insane.
God dang, it is a small world. Jeez Louise.
So when Dolph is saying it's just all one inner working family in Iowa, it really is. It's a big family affair, like he said. And I mean, just that Dolph is just one of the unique personalities ever to come through the sports world in general.
We should this summer, if your schedule allows. My schedule will always allow. I will always make time for it. Cows come. You got to take care of them, keep them alive. But they come secondary if I got to go do a big old podcast stream thing. We just got to go play golf with Gary this summer and then sit down and talk with him in person for 2.0.
Here's the thing with that. Yes, he would love to do that, and we will. But I'm just telling you,
his schedule's probably insane.
We probably won't be able to talk after the round.
Well, we can record it and then see if it's usable.
I've golfed with him a couple times. It's an absolute blast. You'll need a designated driver and probably a place to stay.
Oh man, I love it. That's awesome. Oh boy. I got so much other stuff to talk about, but I think next episode I got the transfer portal's nuts. So many college basketball and football guys too, but the college basketball transfer portal has been crazy. We can talk about in detail about that on the next episode. What did you think about Coop? I love where he landed in the draft. I hate that he fell out of the first round, but I think, wow, the Eagles, they got both secondary guys they wanted, and him and Quinyon Mitchell. They were trying to trade up to get both of them in the first. Cooper, I mean, they had a late pick in the second, and they were able to trade up in the second and get Cooper. I love where he fell, but I hate that he fell out of the first round. But ultimately, life's about fit. I think he's going to kill it in Philly. He's going to kill it.
Yeah, as much as, I mean, I don't know how the numbers all worked out money-wise for him to fall that far. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I think he's a good enough player. This is what I was telling a lot of my friends. It doesn't matter where he's going to end up. He's going to make an impact wherever he goes, and he's going to make himself stay. Because, you know, I always bring this up. Same thing with NBA basketball. The time frame and average lifespan for a lot of athletes out there are around 2 to 3 years. I think it's a little less than basketball in the NFL. And I truly believe he's a player that's going to be there for 10 to 12 plus years in the NFL. He has that ability to. And that right there just separates yourself and having a longevity in a professional sport. So I didn't think it was going to matter wherever he was going to fall.
No. There's one guarantee. It's not a 100% guarantee, but a dang near guarantee is that a Hawkeye that is doubted will always succeed in the NFL. And people are going to be like, why'd he go so low? I think of AJ Epinesa, Desmond King, Micah. Like, I'm just naming all these DBs, all these Phil Parker DBs who go third, fourth, fifth round, or should go first and go second. And they're all Pro Bowlers. They're all pro. I mean, Desmond King and Micah Hyde, unbelievable careers. Geno Stone is in the middle of an amazing career. Michael Ojemudia is still there. And Cooper, I bet he has a massive chip on his shoulder. This is only going to fuel his fire. I love to see the video when he got the call and he hugged his mom. Tears are flowing. He's hugging his grandparents and the tears are flowing. And it's just so rewarding to see that, because, you know, his dad talked about how he would skip dances, he would skip social things to go to the gym, to lift, to work out, to work on his foot speed, to watch film, to study the game of football. If you want that dream, you will sacrifice for it, and it's paying off, and I'm just so happy for him. It's got to be such an incredible feeling to know that all the sacrifices and time you put in is worth it. And here you are. I mean, he got to play at Iowa. That would make it more than worth it. But now to get paid to do this for the next decade or whatever it is, it's so cool to see those draft videos and see all the sacrifice pay off for these guys, and especially our Hawks.
Especially a kid like that with Coop. And I was thinking that it was almost part of his story force people not to believe in him and for him to fall in the draft. So I was looking at it from that aspect. A lot of people were, debating and upset that he didn't go earlier like he should. And I'm over on the contrary, where I'm saying this is a kid that grew up in a place in Iowa where no one makes it out of being a professional athlete. No one is a success in athletics, like, being able to be a professional athlete.
Yeah.
And everyone doubts your whole entire life to do stuff like that. I mean, that's just that's what everyone is growing up in Iowa. Everyone doubts you. You're an underdog. You have to fight for your life every single day. You have to make sacrifices in order to make the next level of whatever profession you're in. I mean, that just epitomizes the whole Iowa way of growing up. And
yes, sir.
I think it was full circle for that to happen to him. So he has that continued underdog mentality, because that's what he grew up like. And I don't think it's going to be a worry for him at all, because he's going to use this as even more motivation. Because when people doubt Iowa kids, those Iowa kids, like Dolph was talking about, you mess with Iowa kids, they're going to come back like he was talking about with Stanzi. They're going to come back with a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to be pissed off and knowing that you really messed with them, and it was the wrong decision for them to ever do that.
Yep, no doubt about it. Man, I saw also, the Philadelphia Eagles on their social medias posted a video they put together of him arriving. The driver gets out of the big, nice black SUV, opens the door for Coop. He gets to step out. He's with his parents, and they're walking through the Eagles facilities and signing contracts and making it all official. And I was just, I'm just freaking happy for that guy. I'm happy for all the Iowa athletes that get to experience that. But with Coop, it just feels a little more personal, because he's just down the road from me in a community that's very similar. It's almost impossible for a kid to come out of like where we're at to make the big time. It's a sheer numbers game. we're just a small community, the odds are very unlikely that it'll happen. Or if it does happen, it's usually a big old chunky lineman. But it's a little white DB this time around, and I don't know. It just feels it almost feels like Coop's doing it for all of us small town boys, but I'm just happy for the guy. It was so cool to see all those videos and stuff.
Well, the sheer of just the perspective of what it takes to get to that level, just number wise, just look at number wise.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone that plays professional or anyone that goes from high school to college, it's about 1.5–2%
mm-hmm.
of the people that actually play in the world. Mm-hmm. So just from a sheer numbers standpoint, just from high school to college, think about that.
Yep.
Then from college to professional, it's 0.6% of those athletes going into professional from college.
Yeah.
If you bring it full picture of what that kid really just accomplished, you're right. It's almost an impossible situation where no one ever does that.
Yep.
But what like you're talking about, the sacrifices he made, that's what it took for him to be, that 0.6%er that, he just changed his family tree. He just changed that whole entire community, the entire state, because of what he was able to sacrifice growing up. And that right there is, really, really special.
Yes, sir. And that proves that if God has a plan for your life, nothing will get in the way, man. Nothing. That's all I got.
Luke 1:37.
There it is. Hey, people, look it up. Google it or go open your Bible and read it and let it change your life. How about that?
Do you know Luke 1:37?
Vaguely, but I don't want to butcher it. I know the plans. Wait, that ain't it. That's a different one.
Yeah, there's different wordings, obviously, with
what is it?
Through God, with anything is possible.
There it is. It's true. You know what? I never thought that I'd get to be paid to do a podcast or be friends with former Hawkeyes, but here we are.
Yeah, well, I just love talking. I mean, the fact that when we just sat down with the legend Gary Dolphin, talking about Iowa kids, this is what makes this podcast so special. Not even just ours, but they're so rewarding to look back now, and especially being a player, looking back now and seeing stuff like this happen with Coop and listening to Dolph about his history. I mean, Iowa truly is such a special place. And, there's always that talk where people from Iowa love Iowa to death. They'll go to bat to Iowa. They'll lay their life on the line for Iowa. People not from Iowa, they'll hate on them to the day they die. So
you hate us because you ain't us.
Right. Exactly. It's the best place in the world.
Oh, man. Even when the wind is blowing, I sometimes say, you know what? It's still
maybe not. Maybe not when the wind's blowing.
I send some pretty hateful text messages about this state when the wind is blowing and it never stops raining. But then deep down inside, I do know that I don't mean it. Yeah. Somewhere way deep down in there.
It's worth it. Get through the wind. It's worth it.
Yep. Oh, boy, that was fun. Thank you, J-Bo, for introducing me to Gary. Hopefully first of many conversations with that man in our lives. Obviously, that was not your first conversation with him, but I hope everyone out there enjoyed it. Enjoyed what I'm going to call him Gary the Historian had to say. That man's full of history and a wealth of knowledge. Check out Iowa Event Center. Nate Bargatze's coming up here, an all-time awesome comedian, family-friendly guy too. So down the road, they got Sebastian Maniscalco. I'm absolutely going to that show. All sorts of awesome country concerts and rock concerts and everything in between. So check out our friends at the Iowa Event Center. And thank you to Channel Seeds, DRF Sportsbook, and Terraple Ag. J-Bo, do you have any closing thoughts before we bounce out of here?
We just made a hell of a lot of memes there.
That was a baby mem if I ever saw us make a baby mem. All right, everyone. We'll see you next week. A lot of transfer portal talk, college basketball and football talk coming next week, I have a feeling. And I've got a lot of other random thoughts that I need J-Bo to decipher for me as well. So get your thinking hat on for the next week, buddy.
My thinking hat's on.
All right.